Hi, I'm Kathy Ann White. You're watching a companion video for my Artsy Shark article. It's called Enliven Art Surfaces with Digital Image Transfers. You can check the description box of this video for different links that would correspond with that article and some for this video. But let's look at my favorite surfaces first so I can show you what I like to use image transfers on. Now your first look right here is of transfer film with an image printed on it. And this is how you get all this ink to different surfaces. So this surface right here is a metal mesh. It's a brass. The brasses and coppers will look a little darker because they are dark and they're not white as surfaces being printed. So this is another brass. And then I also like to do the different metals. This is a copper. You can see the copper back. It is a very light metal, so you can crunch it up and fold it and do different kinds of things to it. So I really like using it in mixed media art. Then I have a piece of metal that'll show you how nice the surface is because it gives you a nice bright print. And here's a smaller print of that, which is on a piece of aluminum, and it's a solid aluminum, not the foldy kind that I was just showing you. Then here's a really nice piece of copper, and the copper just makes beautiful images when you pick your image that will enhance the copper. Then here I have a couple pieces that I have laid images into. I use these in my steel sculpture, and sometimes I rivet them or use them in different 3D ways on top of my sculptures. And then here's just a piece of fabric, and this piece of fabric is the cotton, has a little bit of a grid in it, so it lifts up into the transfer and it looks really neat. You will need transfer film that's printed. This is an 8.5 by 11 sheet, but it also comes in a little larger sheet and in rolls. So all the information is in the article. You will also need the transfer formula, the image transfer medium, the Inkade Transferiez, and you'll need some 91% rubbing alcohol to mix it. Now you'll follow the instructions on the bottle and it'll tell you everything you need to know about mixing it. What I do after I mix it in this jar, and when I do that, and it's settled, takes about 4 hours, you need to let it set. Then I put my brush in there because it keeps my brush moist. It's always ready to use. I don't mix more than 4 ounces of alcohol at a time with the transfer solution because I find it keeps it fresh and I don't get a lot of junk in it, and then I can just work as much as I want. Then some of the tools, brayers will work. You might need a foam brush. You will find out what works for you best. Sometimes I like to use a terry cloth towel as I push the image in. And then also there's this catalyst wedge. I have information in the article on where to find these things. And then this is just like a this is a Scotch-Brite, and this is a metal for metals for Scotch-Brite. So this will, you'll see in the video, it will show you how you scratch up your metal surface. And then you might need some tape. It's going to really depend on you, a scissors, and whatever other things that you see in the video that I used. And then let's go see how to print our transfer film. Now there are two ways to prepare your transfer, or the image that you're going to transfer. One is to actually say, I'm going to print this image, just print this image. And then when you get to doing your transfer, if you don't want it to be a solid line around, or you want to take some of the transfer film a little away from the edge, you're going to have to do that manually. But if I wanted to do it here in my file, I would just go to my eraser tool and pick an eraser that you can see all these different erasers in here, and some of them are, have more air between them and they're not totally solid like those. And you can use one of those and then just come in here and erase little parts of your image, because then you have a jagged edge. So that's my little quick tip on that if that's what you want to do. And that'll be really easy for you to do before it's printed so it's ready to go. One more quick tip. If you are going to print this and you want this picture to be exactly like you see it, you are printing it on transfer film, so it'll be the reverse. So what you can do is you can go to edit and you can transform and you can flip the image horizontally, and then it will print the correct way when you get it to the printer. And if you don't do that, then you can do it actually in the print box. You can go to your printer and you can open up your print box, and when you get to, let's see here, right here. Okay, in this little print box, see it says flip horizontally. Now it's going to flip it horizontally. So what you want to make sure you do, if you care about how your image is going to be when you get it on your transferred surface, you want to flip it. Just a heads up. Many of the porous fabrics work exactly like this canvas will work. So I'm going to show you, we'll go through the canvas, and then we're going to look at what might be difference between this process and the other as I explain it to you. First of all, you can see that right here my image does not have an edge around it, and I can show you when I showed you on the computer how I erase it. And this is a bit erased around, but this one I didn't do it to. So because I didn't, I am going to have to use a cloth and a little bit of water, and I will just rub out the edges, and then we'll get back to doing what we need to do. I gathered a couple things that I like to use with this. This is a really good tool for pushing this into the canvas itself and getting the print really nicely set. So this is where it'll end up being. One of the things I'm going to do now is I am going to tape this edge down like at the top, and then we'll tape the other side too, because we don't want it to open up. But first I want to see if the canvas here is going to stretch a bit. So my main thing is to get a lot of the transfer solution onto this canvas, and I want it very saturated. I don't want to leave anything at all not saturated, because if it's saturated, then the print will not only let itself go from the surface it's on, but it will be where I want it to be and float into the top of the image. I mean the top of the fabric, because you want it set. You don't want it laying on top, or I don't. You might decide that that's great for you, but for me, what I like to see is I like to see the gradation, or the little weave of the fabric, because I love the way that looks. And that's just me. So you'll figure out what works for you. So see, I can see that this is pretty saturated right now. So just to make sure, I'll make sure my edges were done well, because I'm not actually really sure right now where this is going to go to the edge of. Hopefully I saturated it all. Then I'm going to just put a piece of tape down here and get this set. And I'm going to set my print, my image, towards the middle. I usually just hold the top of it. I don't set it, I don't tape it to keep it where it should be, but if you like to tape it, this is your process. You take what you need to know and then you move it from there for what's good for you. So I'm going to move this into the canvas just like this, and then brayer it a bit, and we'll be ready. I did tape the edges down so that I would be sure that as I lift this, the edges don't lift too. And I just keep a little bit of pressure from my fingertips, so I'm taking it all across the entire piece, or as close as I can, and then you have your image. So now I'm going to go for a printing plate to do an image on. And the first thing I did was I just use a bit of, this is like almost like a Brillo pad, and I just scuff it up a little bit. Then I wash it, and I'm going to put the coating on it, the Transferiez. Now in metal, you have to really be careful you don't smush this around once you put it on it, because you can mess up the print inside. As soon as the ink starts to release, if you move the transfer on top, you can smear it underneath, which is not a good thing. So I'm going to press this down and wait my time, and then we'll take this off of here. So I'm ready to take this off, and I lift it very carefully, and then I just start to roll it down. And done. And you have a really nice printing plate piece. I do have another couple things to show you. One is a print that I did on brass. This is just a section of it. It's I love the way the brass takes over different parts of the color, and then other parts of the color get more vibrant with it. It's really a nice surface to print. Well, actually, to use a transfer on, but I do print that. That's a transfer. But I do want to talk to you about one thing about metal that can happen. And this is because I wasn't paying attention. Okay, you see these things right here? Well, that's because when I instead of pressing lightly down like this, when I use the, put my transfer on, I put my fingers on here. And as soon as my fingers went on there, they spread the ink that was already getting loose. So you want to be careful to keep your fingers off. You'll see my hands on things, but it's not tightly on things. It might look like it is, but it's not. That is. So you want to be careful about things like that. The other thing is, sometimes when you roll it or you brayer it too hard, or you press it, even with this type of thing, you can make the ink move and run away. So you want to think about that when you're working on metals. But metal is a beautiful surface to use a transfer on. So now I have a piece of 16 gauge steel. This is, you can see what the steel actually looks like when it has just been roughed up and it's a little teeny bit rusty. This side has what is called gilder's paste on it in silver. And this will allow me to get a brighter print on the silver, because you can see how much brighter that is. Now, I am not looking for a perfect print, but, I want it to look, well, it really doesn't matter, because I like them all to be a little different. It's for a larger piece. So I'm just going to put my coating. It's really not a coating, but it's a transfer fluid. And then I'm going to take this and lay it down, and then press it out. It's metal again. I'm not looking to totally mess up my print, but just a little. So, and the actual metal has little kind of holes in it from all the messing around it's been doing, like when I cut the edge off with the plasma cutter and did different things to it. So I will just make this a little better here and put this down so it will actually, get the image to the surface. Thing that I do want to say about metal is when you think this is going to move, I've already seen some movement in here. What you do it in little sections. Because if you take it through a whole entire long piece, you have much better chance of the print moving around. So make sure it's pressed into it so that when you go to take it off, it doesn't all come off. And if you want a really perfect print, start small, keep playing with it, and you'll figure out what works best with you to get the metal where you want it to go.